All right, welcome to Pacific Town Hall. Today is March 8th, 2023. No, yes, March 8th. And this is the Pacific Town Hall. We are gathered here from various places around the Pacific Ocean. Newman just shared a map of locations of people, and it really is kind of like showing Australia, Japan, Canada, and the United States. Let me share my screen really quick. We can do our standard slideshow. Right. So this is the Pacific Town Hall. It happens every other week at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today is March 8th, 2023, and this is our agenda for tonight. We're just going to do a quick intro orientation. We have space for community updates from everybody here if you have something to update us on. And then tonight's an open topic night. Whatever you guys want to talk about, we can bring that up. We're testing out some new graphics here created by Midjourney based on some prompts around Pacific Town Hall and stuff. So I thought they were pretty cool, so I thought I'd drop them in. Pacific Town Hall is a community-led weekly meetup that happens on alternate Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is Thursday, 1 a.m. UTC. And we seek to provide a safe and lively environment for the Cardano community to come together and connect, have interesting discussions, share relevant knowledge, and happen at a time that is convenient for people living around the Pacific, which is really evident by the map that Newman created. I think that really shows how we do circle the Pacific Ocean. Just really quick, this is hosted by Sonata, the Salmon Nation Decentralized Alliance. And if you want to get involved, we are a community-led organization. So if you want to jump in, we have a Discord server. We can have conversations on topics and things. And we'd love to have you come aboard. Standard Catalyst kind of stuff. Welcome to the experiment. Here, things may break, lack documentation, differ greatly between iterations, disorient, overload, and inspire. But overall, our goal is to provide a safe and lively space for you to explore the highest potential of human collaboration. Pacific Town Hall is one of several town halls. So if you're in other locations or you're up late at night or early in the morning, you can check them out. We have the Eastern Town Hall every second Saturday at 9 a.m. UTC. This is the Pacific Town Hall. The Africa Town Hall happens each second Friday at 1800 UTC. Latin American Town Hall each Thursday at 2130 UTC. Europe Town Hall every second Thursday at 1730 UTC. And the MENA Town Hall happens, it happened on October 11th at 1600 UTC. This hasn't been updated. So as soon as I find out what their regular schedule is like, I'll update this slide. And just for other community groups that are meeting, we have Gimbal Labs Playground, Cardano for Climate, Swarm Session, and Lido Nation. There are details here for those groups meeting. And then, yeah, so let's go into the community updates. We have some minutes. This is basically in 2 minutes, tell us what you've been up to, and get ready to drop links into chat, share what you're doing, any links to projects and things like that. It's really a time for the community to kind of let each other know what we're up to and what we're doing. So I don't know, does somebody want to kick it off and start? Oh, and welcome, Joe. Nice to see you here.
Let me jump in. Let's see. Oh, and 2 minutes. I've got my 2-minute timer. Blink. Hey, Joe. I am. Let's see. I just did my closeout report for the Fun 7 DAOs Love Cardano challenge team. Challenge team is kind of a strange animal, and but I really love it, like developing a community around the challenge category of Project Catalyst. Let's see. The in the C4C, I'm working on like a project management and community collaboration standards document, and taking a survey basically of all the different community projects and how they do it. I think that this is one of those things about a decentralized organization to help us all support, sort of be supported and give support. And that sort of the decision making at the edges, so like not one, but we all kind of feed and are fed by each other. So like all the different tools and all that whatnot. There is an interesting thing going on at Little Fish. And I don't know if you've gotten an update about Little Fish lately. They've sort of pivoted into a game model and using character creation in this ikigai, building your personal sort of basically strengthening a decentralized organization workers' sense of self, giving them tools to get self-aware so that they can participate more fully in decentralized organizations. And they have a survey that I actually love to share with everyone about like coming into Catalyst and what you would want to give advice, advice to new members. So that's in 2 minutes, like what I'm up to. Thanks, everyone.
You want to drop a link to the survey into chat, and maybe people can take a look at that?
I will.
Awesome.
And your closeout report, Newman, from this morning.
I'll send a link over to that too. Yep, for sure.
Awesome.
Great. Who wants to go next? Do you want to share something, Joe, about what's going on?
I am deep in edits for the onboarding company's playbook right now. I found a whole load of Nori. Nori's on that team as well. And our meeting the other day, I said, I put a whole load of comments in here and I can't find them. Well, I found them. So I'm asking Miro a whole bunch of questions on Discord right now. So I'm deep in that. That was a Fun 9 project with Nori and Yoram and Cole and Miro and Andre, which is a great project because it's really useful for me on the ground here and Nori on the ground in Canada and British Columbia and Yoram in France, starting to collate all of that information about getting money on and off Cardano blockchain, reporting to Project Catalyst, so that we don't have to keep repeating ourselves every time we get a new person involved. So that's fun. That's cool. Another project I'm working on, which is a kind of a big long-term project this year, is tribal digital identifiers for Indigenous sovereignty. So we've had some awesome engagement this week with some major banks and the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand and various different other parties around AML and KYC requirements for projects and money on and off the chain, etc. And also where DIDs actually fit into that KYC and AML process and at what levels. All fascinating and complicated stuff, and I'm sure it's the same in other countries, but it amazes me constantly how ambiguous the laws actually are. I found all of this stuff, and very often they're kind of like, and you need to run a good process, so make sure you do, and then there's no guidance on what the process should be. So you could have to create a process and then go back and check it with them and go, is this okay? Which is such a huge amount of overhead, particularly if it's a small business or an organization like a charity or a not-for-profit that doesn't have the resources to engage a PwC or a Deloitte or etc. to do that work for them. So yeah, that's a fascinating project, and I'm very excited because I've started with the team the Prison Beta program, and the Prison Pioneers program will be out shortly. And we've just this week got some great engagement from that team, which is going to help that project. So that's really cool. And then the other one, big one that I'm working on is Yumi.ai, which is around funding and financing for innovation projects beyond Project Catalyst. And that project just gets better and better and better every week. And there's quite a few people working on it now, including Angela from Eastern Town Hall, who was part of the Women's Day event that Cardano Foundation ran this morning, which was really cool.
You just had a nice panel discussion there today. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. She was involved in that this morning. So yeah, there's quite a bit going on, staying pretty busy, and it's all fun. It's all good.
Amazing.
And I can't share any links yet because none of those things are finished yet.
Thanks. I'll riff on that myself since I'm involved. So yeah, this week I've been working on the community collaboration standard stuff with Newman for Cardano for Climate. I've kind of written a document going over our agile methodology and process and how all that works and all that. And our goal is really to create a set of documents to share with the community that here's how at least C4C does community collaboration. And these are the best practices we found over the last little while working on that kind of stuff. And then today I contributed to the onboarded companies playbook that Joe mentioned. So I filled in a few of those blank pages, and that's really a document, as Joe said, that we're creating to help companies that get funded through Catalyst have kind of a playbook to say, okay, now I'm funded, now what? And it goes through all of the different details that a company might need to know to be successful. Everything from doing proof of life to the coordinator meetings and all that, to all the Telegram groups, expectations of monthly reporting and all the stuff, treasury management and how you handle the ADA that you receive and things like that. So hopefully that's going to be a really useful resource for companies that come on board. What else? I've been working with the Governance Guild. I'll share this link right now. We've launched something we're calling Voltaire News with an exclamation point. And it's kind of a shared community document where we're just collecting any kind of conversation, document, links, material being created related to Cardano governance, since that's kind of what we're moving into, the age of Voltaire. So we wanted to just provide a service where all of this is available. We're experimenting with an openly editable doc right now. So anybody who has additional links or things they want to add, feel free to jump in and do it. We're trusting people, and we're going to start from that. And hopefully we don't have to institute more safety measures, but so far it's been really great to see people just contributing to that. So I wanted to make a call out for that. What else? Oh, related to your project with around sovereignty, Joe, I've been contacted by a student who's working in a master's program, and I have an interview with her next week. And she is examining whether blockchain technology can lead us to forest sovereignty.
Oh, I love it.
And yeah, so she's like diving into things like the basics of sovereignty through control, legal questions, the concept of selfhood for a forest and how that can work, and community. And she's not talking just human communities, but forests are a community of plants, animals, all sorts of things in that biosphere. And what does that mean? And who gets to speak on behalf of the whole forest? And what does that mean? Diving into ethics and communication, and what language do we use to talk to a forest or communicate with the forest? And she's really interested in how Web3 and blockchain technologies can interface in that area. So it's very like two very leading edge areas she's trying to explore that kind of the tendrils between the two. So
I'd love to dig into that after everybody else has done a roundup, because we have rivers in New Zealand and mountains that have personhood.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, so I was wondering when I talked to her if you'd be interested in connecting with her at some point as well.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. So
Thank you.
that's coming up for me this next week. I have an interview with her. And oh yeah, I ran the DREP book club today. So after town hall, we had our second book. It's called The Power of Experiments, and we read that over the last month and went over it today. So I'll put a link to the YouTube recording of that in chat here. And the next book is Reinventing Organizations again, because it's on IOG's list, but it's also a pretty important book. So I'm looking forward to getting through it a second time and sharing that. So that should happen in about a month or so at a town hall coming up. But yeah, that's me. Dylan, Seira, or Bryan, any updates from you guys?
Yeah, I can have a little bit of a talk. I won't talk for too long. I do. I would love to see the Catalyst onboarding guideline that you and Newman have been working. You and Newman, wasn't it? Or is it you and Joe?
Me and Joe.
Yeah. Okay, Joe. That sounds awesome. Especially like people like Seira and myself probably would love to see it, since we are going through it currently, and like you're right, the finding out what's going on, what's needed is difficult in itself. So having some sort of guideline where to go, who to talk to, what you need to do, what you need to supply would be amazing. I mean, my only fund was a little bit different because we got shifted, by a third party. We got shifted out of the Catalyst, so we don't report directly through the same system. But I'd love to see the document so I can see what's required, how it is, and then possibly provide some feedback from how I've traveled through the process, and if I feel there's anything missing, or just to say, awesome, this is what's needed. So I'm super interested in that. Yeah, we're working through our project still. I mean, there's been it's weird to say because we've had to change our milestones a little bit to what we proposed, because that was asked through the supplier. So we're working on a couple of different things, but constantly working. Been attending a lot of meetings and meetups here in Brisbane. I went to my first Bitcoin one, which was different because I'd never actually been to a Bitcoin meetup before, and it was the biggest one they've had. They said it was interesting. It was interesting to talk to people. They had the Beef Initiative come over from Texas, so it was interesting to see sort of projects that are happening on Bitcoin. It's something that honestly I never really considered for our project because side chains, things like that, just weren't a thing when I was looking. And they're sort of trying to do stuff, but it's not. I'm still a big believer in sort of like third level blockchains where they've done the research and they've expanded, like third generation. I mean, so there's been that peer review sort of research in depth for scalability, speed, security, things like that is required to sort of run things on. Bitcoin's great, but one thing that sort of threw me off it initially was just for simple purchases, like if you go to a shop and you're buying some fish and chips or whatever you're buying, and then you buy, there's a bit of a time for it to be processed, and then there's a fee on top of that. And if you're buying chips and fish or whatever your food is for like $40, and there's a fee of $25 to get that, it sort of defeats the purpose. So you sort of like, well, why would I do that? So then there's a few other blockchains that have got that. I mean, and what I've seen is if they go for speed, they lose security, or it's like the triangle. They lose one of them, whether it be security, speed, or what is the other one? What is it? Security, speed.
Scalability, maybe.
Scalability, and there's also the centralization, the decentralization, which fits into it all too. And I mean, that's really how they decide to run things, I guess, how they run. Oh, and there's also proof of work and proof of stake. That played a huge part in our project, because being such a environmentally conscious, sort of social focused project, we didn't want to do all this hard work and then have to use a hell of a lot of electricity to get sort of blockchain running. I mean, that's obviously why the costs of transactions are so high too, because it costs a lot to run. But they're the I've been looking and trying to get to a few more. I go to so many Cardano meetups, and they're great, and there's great people, but a lot of them are like, oh, you've got to come along and just talk to other people, which is interesting, because you meet different people with different ideas. They're doing different things, so it's great to get in different communities a bit, because I've spent a lot of time now in Cardano, but it's interesting to see what other people are doing out there and what their thoughts are on for the future. And that's not just with blockchain, but just with technology and what they're thinking and people's ideologies. I speak to a lot of lawyers, and at these things, there's a lot of lawyers too, and then they talk about the different communities, and they say the Cardano community is one of the smartest, which is interesting. But they didn't really have anything bad to say about the others. It's just, it depends where you are. You go and you get different people at different things. With the project itself, it took me longer than I thought I would. We're working on a lot. We're working on this really interesting new NFT project that the artist doesn't want to talk about yet until like everything's finalized and going out. And then just working on advertising, marketing, community building, things like that. But there's more happening in the back end still. Just really legals all the time. I cannot wait until that is sorted out and we can finally move on to doing some good, but talking to developers as well, and about what the next steps are for things, and looking at doing a couple of projects which are more community based rather than just focusing just on my project. They'll be open sourced for the community, and I think there's some good ideas in what I'm doing there too. So at a later stage, I'll talk about them as well. Does anyone know what is happening with round 10 of Catalyst?
Oh,
that is a really good question. Latest rumors, since this is being recorded, are that nobody knows. They did say sometime in April, maybe, but I think they're even backpedaling from that. So I'm guessing with DREPs being included, my guess is that the code to enable that is complicated, and they're having to make sure that it works and everything for Fund 10, having DREPs enabled. That said, it could be something else. It could be political, or it could be...
Can you give updates on what is happening? I mean, there's obviously some big changes in play due to the time frame that this is taken for the next fund. So I'm curious to know what's being mentioned that they are changing. How is the total system overhaul? Are they just little things? Is it going to be a different voting mechanism? Is there a different submission, project submission? What's happening? What's known, or is nothing known?
Nothing is known. The only thing that I know about is that DREPs are supposed to go live in Fund 10, and they've been working towards that. They've had, I think, 3 workshops now for DREPs to explain the program and how it's going to work and what delegation means and all of that kind of stuff. So my guess is they're working really hard to enable that functionality, and all the wallets are going to have to support it. There has to be some kind of a rollout of the wallet, so you can say, I delegate my votes to Seira because I think he's a cool guy. Or they do it through a website, or I don't know how they're going to do that delegation, but that needs to happen. And we haven't even seen an alpha version of what that might look like yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess a follow-up question would be, what do you guys want to see? What changes do you want to see, or what do you think would improve the whole system. I mean, I saw things. I've only participated, like submission wise, in the last two, and the first one I did in Fund 8 was it. That was super last minute. I got COVID at the end, and it was just, we could have done a lot better with what we did, which sort of we focused on for round 9. But yeah, I saw things in there that I was like, oh, that could be a lot better, or this could be improved. I mean, everything shows a positive steps in the right direction, but there can also be improvements, a lot of improvements, and that's part of the growth of a decentralized system. What are everyone's thoughts on that, and what can we do to improve this?
Let's pin that for a second, because I think that's a great topic to get into. I just want to make sure Seira has a chance to share any updates for the community, and then we can get into like a conversation around some topics.
Thank you, Nori. Hi everyone. So my updates will be quick. So Madi, I think you remember Madi. So she made a presentation about impact lending project about a month ago, I think. And now she's in Thailand. So she has been there for about 5 days, and she will be there until Saturday. So just an update. So we are targeting unbanked farmers, and we have 2 leads. So one in Thailand and the other in Cameroon. So our goal is to find a partner on the ground. So we're looking for cooperatives that work with unbanked farmers on the ground. And we haven't been able to find that one in Thailand yet. So she has two more days left to find that one. And if that doesn't work, then we need to find someone else in Cameroon. So we have some personal connections in Thailand and Cameroon, and that's why we chose these locations. But we might need your help. So if you know anyone based in Thailand working with unbanked farmers, or it could be nonprofit organizations or any companies that work in financial inclusion, or it could be DeFi lending protocols as well, right? So if you know anyone, please, I would appreciate your connections and help. Thank you.
Awesome. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Seira?
Maybe I will put my Telegram ID. So it's just my name. Oops. I will just put it to everyone. Yep. Or my email address. I'll put Madi's as well.
All right. Perfect. Yeah, thanks for the update.
And what do you like? What's the ask?
So we want to talk to people who might be connected to cooperatives on the ground, so like farmers cooperatives, and we want to partner with them to start this pilot project for impact lending.
Cool.
Yeah. So even if you don't know directly the cooperatives, people who might know the cooperatives, that will be helpful as well.
Does it have to be in those 2 locations?
For now, we are targeting these locations, but we might have a lead in the Philippines as well. So we're keeping our options open, but Madi is already in Thailand, and she will travel to Cameroon at some point. So these 2 locations, we already have some connections on the ground, and it will be amazing. But if you have other connections in different parts of the world, we would welcome that as well.
I know that there's potentially a so it's not a cooperative yet, but they're talking about maybe needing to form a cooperative in Ghana, a group of coffee farmers.
Amazing. Yeah, that will be amazing too. Thank you.
Have you connected with WADA just to ask them about their network? And
yeah, so Madi spoke with Mercy from WADA, I think this morning. So I think they have presence in Cameroon and also in Ghana. So yes, we've been in touch with them, so we would love to collaborate as well.
Perfect. Yeah.
Also,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah.
And yeah, by the way, the onboarding guidebook, that will be amazing for us as well. I think that would help us a lot.
I think
Thank
we're
you for
going to
that.
have to do lots of country-specific pages period of time, right?
Mhm.
It'll be pretty high level at this point rather than digging down because every jurisdiction has quirks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
expand more on
definitely.
that, Joe? Like what you're meaning by how would the difference be? I mean, are you talking about tax or what? Can you just expand on what would be the difference for like Sarah and myself?
So there is kind of an international body of rules around funds transfer, around KYC, AML, those kinds of regulations, and it's a really one of those kind of obnoxious international organizations that you cannot really kind of get your hands around. The initials are FATF, the financial something. But they set a kind of a standard, a bit like for the digital identity is the W3C, right? So there's kind of setting standards of what's required for banking industry, for various parts of funds transfer between countries internally as well. But every government has the opportunity to obviously make their own rules and regulations around what they tax and how you invoice and what the AML and KYC and CTF requirements are and how they get applied and who needs to sign them off. As I said earlier, good hour and a half's conversation with the ex-chief of the bank, and even he was unsure about the regulations and why there were gaps in them and why they were so ambiguous in parts. So yeah, it's not straightforward. The good news is though that means it's decentralized, right? Like it is not one American-led system that everybody has to comply with, right? There is some flexibility in it, and there are standards to sort of look for and meet, but no control. There is a watchdog that comes along and goes, oh, New Zealand, you're not doing so well on the AML and the KYC. From
So who's in control of that watchdog?
The same organization.
Who's in charge of the organization? Like what country does it reside in, or is it decentralized? Yeah.
So it's called the here we go. I'll put the link in.
Do you think there's a sort of like certain countries in the world that are leading the way in sort of regulations?
It's one of those organizations that it's really, as I said, hard to get your hands around exactly how it works. Like I would assume, and it's only assumption, and like I haven't dug into it deeply, but it would be connected with all of the federal bank, the national banks, the World Bank, the the International Monetary Foundation. Like I'm assuming that it's part of that kind of group of entities, reserve banks for countries. I'm sure there's more information that you can find out. It has a list of member countries and there is a global, you know, network. There's information on their site that you can dig into, but that's kind of the organization that you that all of these things come from.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. I mean, I can understand that there has to be policies in place for worldwide, you know, to stop money laundering, to stop crime, terrorism, all these things. And I mean, they have to be intergovernmental sort of bodies where there's multiple things. But a lot of times when these things are formed, there are beneficial, interested governments that are looking into it more, and then they're swaying these policies for the rest of the world, sort of thing, as it happens. And sometimes they're not the experts or not the best people to be doing that because they've got their own agendas in place. And I was just curious if you had any ideas of, like, if there's any other organizations, you know, running their own regulations for specifically for crypto and blockchain, that are sort of leading the charge, having a more decentralized focus rather than how do we just tax the hell out of this? How do we make money from this? How do we control this? Rather than how do we blossom this new technology that has great potential? Yeah.
We are so early, Dylan. I think
I know.
Always begs repeating, right? That we're right on the bleeding edge here, and everybody's scrambling, right? Like literally everybody's scrambling. Fortunately, a little less so this year because it's a bear market rather than a bull market, right? So there aren't hundreds and thousands of people just trying to make a quick buck, and it's the builders that are actually here and trying to nut out the details, you know. But Australia is one of the you know leading lights in this area. I mean, actually talking about DAOs at a national level is great and impressive. I mean, you know, Wyoming is the home of DAO regulation right now, one state in the United States. And you're a country that are pursuing it. So yeah, I mean, I would look to your federal government right now and be saying, hey, we're a leading organization, you know, want to get involved. There is
Australia could have been leaders in a lot of things, but yeah, it's just I don't hold my breath for Australia to be the leaders in crypto, to be honest.
There is a civil society organization that is kind of set up around FATFA, so there is some kind of body as well. I've put that link in the chat too, but that's where things are coming from right now, and I'm assuming that they are, you know, rushing around with like chickens with heads cut off around all of this crypto stuff as well, you know. So
yeah. I do too. I'm just curious to hear other people's thoughts on that, because you know, I hear speaking to lawyers, they talk about the jurisdictions. I mean, Australia is interesting because we're having a lot of discussions sort of open, and there's been what they want to feedback from all the lawyers and the you know, the brain trust to get in there and give them the information back on I can't remember what it was called. They released that document they wanted reports back on just last week even. And then, you know, they discuss things like what's going on in the UK, and they're like massive 500-page sort of documentation where they get, I haven't read it all because I don't want to. But yeah, like from my feedback for other people's is, you know, they get, one of the lawyers mentioned that they get sort of confused around the word of property. So it sort of goes off in tangents, which are possibly different, but there are some interesting ideas in there as well. I guess each country is trying to work out the best way to do this, but I imagine that when a leading country comes up with, you know, a really good sort of regulations for jurisdictions that work in a global way that other countries will sort of adopt those if they seem to be working. And I guess it could even be the case that whoever gets in first with these things, people will just adopt that method because it's just there.
And that's the reason to get involved with your government and say, we're a project, we're working on this, we're doing these things because you can start to have an effect. With the Tribal Digs project that I mentioned before, you know, we're working with the Department of Internal Affairs in a working group around digital identity standards in New Zealand, right? So the leader of that project is having a direct influence on government through his participation in that working group around one of the fundamentals around decentralization, which is digital identity and verified credentials. So because he's in that group and because we're doing this project and because we're involved in Project Catalyst, which means that we're working with Cardano, you know, it's a, you know, flow down effect essentially. And it also, for you know, the benefit of everybody on the Cardano chain, really does elevate the you know, the community, as these guys are the smart one, right? They are engaging in these conversations because the lawyers are way down the food chain. Like that, they will apply the law in the local situation, but there's no law to apply it. So you have the opportunity to make it.
Yeah, not all of them. Some lawyers that I've met they're sort of trailblazing through and recommending things and pretty well knowledgeable. I mean, it's hard to find a lawyer that is, you know, also you know, got degrees in computer systems and things like that, so they understand the big picture.
Yeah.
But I think your earlier point around there will be those governments that want to get their slice of the pie and other ones who want to pass legislation to enable people to create using this new technology. And I think the latter are going to be the countries that really start to attract the Web3 blockchain talent and really start to take off. So I think there's going to be a bit of that, but everyone eventually is going to realize that they need to have very favorable legal structures around crypto if they're going to be adopting this new technology and be developing and being part of that new economy that's developing around it. So paying attention.
Yeah, well, I guess it's difficult too because there's different degrees of people's understanding of blockchain. Some people just think it's some sort of currency, and that's all. It's like just a digital, like, you know, they don't even they just think it's a ledger. They don't even understand it's like decentralized or whatever. They don't care. Like, you know, look at your centralized digital ones that governments are talking about bringing in, and they're just like, well, it's the same thing. They don't understand the technology behind it and the importance of this and how it can work and what the benefits will be. So there's different sort of scenarios to that. There's the technical structure one, and then there's also the social impact one. And I mean, a lot of us here in this room currently are interested in both, so we can see how that works for both ways. But a lot of other people don't understand that, and they don't understand the technology behind it and the implications of doing it the wrong way for humanity. Could be horrendous. Really could change everyone's lives. And I mean, one thing that still confuses me, and I can't understand, if you were in government, if I had a position in government, I had a position in power, and I was like, okay, I want to bring in this new policy for this thing, but, you know, and I have the option to go, okay, I want 100% control. I'd be like, well, what about that? And like, real understanding, people could be punished, like, for things they do unnecessarily even. and wrongfully. I mean, there could be a dictator come through and then just totally lock down everyone, like 100% lock down everyone. And if you knew that could be an outcome for that, and you were like, you must have family, you must have, children, and see a future for others. Like, well, how could you agree to that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't. How could you push it? But I mean, that's a moral, ethical sort of huge question that I'm personally confused about, because I'd be like, oh, well, I see decentralization as a key, but then for a government to operate, I can understand they want to have control of certain things, but I guess it depends on where these barriers are and who controls them, and that's the huge thing about this, and that's the way we're headed. I mean, the other debates going on that are taking the headlines currently is AI, and it has. I mean, we've all seen Terminator. We know how that can turn out. So it's interesting to see these and discuss these things that have huge implications. Yeah, the last blockchain, not the last one of the other blockchain meetings I went to, we're in a small group. There's maybe 20 of us all talking, and great discussions. But next door, there was a group that was 100 and something people, and they were talking about AI. And it's interesting to see, like, the numbers they're pulling for different things. Anyway, I've gone off on a crazy tangent again.
No,
I love doing that. It's just my thing.
It brought to mind this YouTube video called "The 4 Pillars of Decentralization," and it doesn't really.
That'd be cool to watch.
It's not hugely blockchain focused, but it talks about decentralized communications, decentralized law, decentralized production, and decentralized finance, and how all 4 of these are kind of developing decentralized models. And I think it is a good question. Like, governments typically exist to exert some form of control over these 4 pillars. And if we decentralize it, I think it has to be, those systems need to prove that they're better fundamentally. And it's not that we're gonna tear down one and replace it with this. I think we need to build them in parallel, and then it'll be very evident that the decentralized models work better over time, and people will just switch and start to use it, and the old systems will just start to be used less and less. I think that there is a pathway to a peaceful revolution here, as long as we don't keep pushing the fear buttons of those in power. There must be a collaborative way through, and just I think a lot of it is education.
I wonder. I'm curious because I've heard that, and I always attribute it to Buckminster Fuller, who said that the it's not to tear something down, but to build something that makes the other system obsolete or not useful, or and I agree with that. I think that's it just makes sense to me. But now I'm wondering, I mean, like the car and the horse, or email and regular mail. I mean, what I'm wondering, like, in the past, like, how has like a technological societal shift worked, to see the pattern and then sort of cast that off into the future, because I am curious, and like Dylan, I am concerned, because there is this real potential to go way off the rails, and it's like this. It's this. My need is to not repeat the same mistakes, or to be in that zone where you see the train wreck coming, and you're like, oh, nothing I can do. Which is I just realized that I'm in the 5 Chinese elements. I'm a water, and that's sort of a indicative of sort of the water. It's like, we can go around stuff, but we don't have that kind of force. We can't, we're not like fire. Fire can burn things up, but water sort of just sits in its lowly spot.
Oh, I don't agree with that. We've just had major cyclones in New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's right. When you get a bunch of little waters together, actually, we've also been storming.
Water can be very dangerous.
It's true. It's true.
about homes and lives lost because of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Go check
Flood.
out the Grand Canyon. It's like, that's water.
That's right. Oh no, I
Too
don't
much
feel
or not enough water.
yeah. I don't feel but it is one of those things that it this is to the point of like seeing future issues and kind of sort of seeing a solution, but then just the solution is just not picked up, or like, hey, we're just gonna follow, each other off of the cliff, or feeling powerless to change it, like that's what I feel. It's just like I can see it, but when I look down at my hands and arms, I can't make them move to grab it and change it, to turn the steering wheel. It's kind of like a nightmare in a way.
It takes a long time, right? Like, it's like the move from horses to cars. I mean, that was a good couple of 3 generations.
Right.
Like, I think that's one of the things about this space that is kind of part of the education, is if you're here and you like it and you want to be here, right? What you can imagine is probably beyond your lifetime, to be honest.
Well, I don't know, Joe, because I mean, you look at you mentioned as an analogy the cars, and the cars did take generations, but then Newman also mentioned emails. And at first, when emails came out, they were like, "This is silly. It's never going to take off." Rah rah. Boom. Everyone uses email now. No one sends letters. You know what I mean? Everyone uses email. So there are letters. There's a possibility you can send a letter if you want, but I can also send a telegram if I want to. And the thing is, that speeds up with Telegram with the speed. It's like an exponential growth. So when we have the beginning, there wasn't, the communication was there, but now technology's grown. Now how fast the phones and iPads come in, and then so we may say it takes generations, but that may now only take a few years.
There is a difference, though, between those two things. So
there's a difference, but there's a difference between implementing a blockchain too.
There's a hell of a lot of infrastructure that is required to enable a car to run on a road, right?
I understand that.
Email already had the internet to run on, right? In the case of the things that we're working on, as we've just discussed, there is a whole load of law, regulation, legislation, banking systems, currencies, banks. Like, there's a whole for this to really, be our way of life, right? Like our financial and social operating system, in a way that does enable the freedoms that we're all here to preserve, right? There's a shitload of infrastructure that it's not like releasing email.
Oh, it's not. No, I understand what you're saying too. It's a bigger system, but I think as technology increases and the world becomes smaller, like at the moment we're sitting in a group with people from all around the Pacific, as Newman showed that map earlier, where from all different sort of continents, and we can just sit down and have a chat. We couldn't do that a few years ago either, or if you did, it would be a lot more difficult. Not as easy as this. So as things speed up and people can discuss things more and collaborate more, then things can happen faster. Yeah, but I mean,
ChatGPT got to 100 million users in 2 weeks. Like, that is fast.
That is insane, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's insane. And it's an interesting thing, because I'll speak to people about that. So I don't want to start steering this towards the AI, but I tried it out, and I just started asking a few questions about things I already knew, and things like through chemical engineering. I was like, I wonder how this is. Explain to me this in simple terms, and see you, Seira. And started asking it just some like explain these laws, explain these things, and then got into maths and started asking questions and got pretty deep. And then realize, it's a great tool if you understand things already. You can use it to clarify stuff, to ask things, to get answers fast. I mean, as you know, it's not 100% correct all the time, but then you can fact check yourself. But it's such an amazing thing to be able to use. And I've spoken to other people who are like, oh no, it's terrible. You don't want to get involved. Then I start explaining what I did. And they're like, oh, that's good. No, you can do that. And then and they're like, oh, but it's no good. And then I explain another thing I do. And oh, that's fine. Yeah, you can do that. That's good. And so after about 6, oh yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, you can use it for that. I was like, well, what shouldn't I be using it for? Well, you keep saying it's really bad. What? Explain the bad. And they're like, they can't. They can't explain the bad. They're just scared of where it can go. And this is inevitable now. Same with like blockchain. You can't step back from these things. It's just how they implement.
Had any weird
weird
stuff happen with ChatGPT? Can I
Oh
tell
yeah,
my
definitely. Go on.
So I had to stay up late to see some Italo prison people and then couldn't sleep, right? So I was working on some content and I was asking ChatGPT some questions, right? And I ended up down a rabbit hole asking questions about consensus. And the conversation, I said, get something like, give me an example of something where, people around the world have formed a consensus. And it gave me the example of climate science, right? It wrote out literally an answer that said, the science agrees, that humans have had effect. And then I got error and it disappeared. And I asked the question again, right? And it said error. And I asked again, error. And not only that chat, because I've been able to go back on my, disappeared.
Oh, conspiracy theory. Joe's conspiracy theory number 4 for the day.
There's reinforcement learning, and there are people that are grading results. Like we know that they're completely open about it. There are people in the back end that are, using this, right? And helping guide it and doing the reinforcement learning stuff. But yes, so I don't know whether it was, how that happened, but there was some check in there that went, oh, no, don't give that as an example of consensus.
Do you think that could be possibly because of where that could lead? Where, if the computer then gets too much power, it goes, well, hang on, what's causing the problem? Oh, you are. Let's do something about it. Then Terminator.
Has anybody else had a weird experience?
And then the Matrix. No, not like that. But I don't get personal or things with it. I've just been very I'm
very careful. I always tell the story. I was like, well, I'm not from a very wise family, but my grandmother did say this. She says, be careful what you ask. Are you sure that you want to know the answer to the question? So I'm careful, very careful what I ask of the chat of the AIs, to be honest. And I'm one of those that I use a sort of a fingerprintless browser, or a browser that just erases my cookies and history. And then I also use a regular browser with all the stuff on there so that I don't have to sign into things and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm very careful what I put in the search. I'm very careful what I put in the search in the, yeah. It's
security and privacy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have illusions of privacy, but it's kind of like ready-made cake mixes that kind of make you feel like you're a baker. You're just like, oh, look, I'm baking. Yay. No, you're not really baking. I
love it.
Yeah. But it helps me. it helps me to feel like, oh, I'm doing something that, so.
That's great.
That's a good point. Like with the speed that AI has come upon the scene in a generally usable form, we were talking about all the legislation and all the legal things around crypto and blockchain and all that. And then crypto's been around for a number of years. Like we're just getting started with AI. Like what are the privacy ethics, all those kind of considerations, how much of our data is being stored, and how do these companies comply with like GDPR or CCPA, where the privacy things say you can go to any company and say, forget me completely, and they must push a button to totally delete all their data about you unless there's some kind of transactional information that's needed. And if it's an AI large language learning model, it's like, how do you remove somebody from that?
They don't know. They don't know the black box thing, right? They don't. They're like, well, yeah.
It is
Yep.
super early. It is in both blockchain and AI, and I mean it's super early in the internet really too. There's a lot of things. In the like history of the earth, we're blink of the eye. So we have to be careful like what we do, and that's the thing. But yeah, the science and that the research is there, but I mean, there's still hope, and hopefully those solutions are found, and more solutions are found to a lot of things, to all of these things. Ideally, it's everyone is taken care of. There's no poverty. There's no things. All of the SDGs and everything like that. If that can happen, the world will be better, and and there are a lot of people striving for these things. It's sad if these things are then turned into sort of financial gains somehow. Sort of without delivering the actual good behind it. But I mean, it's sad for anything. It's sad when a crypto project just does a rug pull, or it's sad, like for the whole crypto community. It's sad when like FTX goes down, and that's not like no fault of crypto at all. It's just bad management and scams, and that gives it a bad rap. Things like that. And I mean, like there's things like war and stuff like that. They're terrible. How do we stop these things, and why they're happening? And I don't know. There's just so many things are so intricate. The whole ecosystem of life. And what is it? Are we in a simulation? Is this the Matrix? Have AI ever already taken over? You get asked all these questions about that. Where's John and his mushrooms?
and if you knew that, would you play the game any differently? If you knew that you were in a simulation, would you play it differently?
How do you play it differently, Newman? Give me a hint. I'm asking like the real chat GPT. How?
That's right.
Not really. Give me an example.
Well, I mean, playing differently to me, I mean, it's just basically changing your, changing your mindset and your values. It's just like, okay, I used to value, fair play or being honest. I used to value honesty, but this is a simulation, so now I'm just going to say whatever is necessary. That's
interesting.
Like
interesting.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not saying I did that.
No, I know that you just
qualify that, right?
Yeah. The hell with this. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, and that's interesting because like even like I'm totally going on my own opinions and personal thoughts. I mean, like I'm constantly throughout life trying to improve myself in different ways. How can I be better at whatever I do? And then I do come into these thoughts at times where it's like, okay, like ethics or religion or spirituality, all these things come into play, and I've like sort of asked myself the question of why do I do this? Like, why do I pride myself on like being honest or whatever it is? When I could, I probably don't have to. It probably makes no difference in the end. to my life or whatever, or things that I stick by, you know, like if it would be like not stealing or something like that, and you don't do it. And even if you have the opportunity, you don't do that. And even if you knew you could get away with it, you know what I mean, or whatever, you don't, because it's like a personal choice or something like that. I mean, that's an interesting thing of why some people do that, and then others don't. Others would not even have a second thought about it at all. And yeah, it's that. Yeah, I mean, that could come down to so many different things with the psychology there, but yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, being in a simulation, do you go totally off rail like Rick did in Rick and Morty, or you just Morty it and become like a carpet salesman or whatever you did?
Now you brought Rick and Morty. Oh, okay. Let's quote the scriptures now. Okay, good enough.
I would prefer to
What's he
go
doing?
more
He's off the
Matrix.
thing. He's ripping up his welfare card. Rick just goes, "Oh man, that show."
Yes. Well, I think that innovation, if we want to innovate, if we want to improve, I'm happy to try to work in the decentralized paradigm. You know, that I want to speak to. I want, and this is what the web. I remember in the web, and they were like, okay, it was one to many, and then many to one, and now we're trying to get to many to many. You know, to where like the communication happens in different ways, and I think that it was interesting because I do think that money and the economic geopolitical is ripe for fixing, banking the unbanked, the shenanigans that go on in there, but it's such a triggering, emotionally charged thing for me personally, and it's like the thing. It's like we went right for the jugular, and you're like, whoa, back up, because that's just not gonna change. What I want to do is I want to play some games. Like I want to just work with like something that's inconsequential, some like just frivolous art or just fun, like let's not, like, it's just, I just don't think that's where the innovation is, because it's so much is riding on it and so much resistance to it. Like I think lowering, and I'm just basically talking to myself now, like I want to lower my scope. I don't want to be involved with, I'm not Luke on Tatooine, like I'm Morty, I'm not Rick. I just want to meet the red-haired girl and live a peaceful existence and do the thing, so I think that but there's room for improvement and room for innovation without like attacking everything. And this may go back to Nori's point of just like, let's just build something cool and fun that just sort of makes like that obsolete. And then where does that begin? Et cetera, et cetera.
I was watching this video the last week. It's long, it's like an hour and 30 minutes, so I had to watch in pieces, but it's called Rebuilding Society on Meaning. And this guy, Joe Edelman, really gets into, he's been thinking about this a long time, and he thinks that kind of a lot of our current societal woes are because we're hyper optimizing the way we do things. In technology, we're creating funnels and pipes, or tubes, he calls them, and we're lining up strangers in order to sell them a product or our services. And we've stopped finding meaning in these human relationships. And he talks about this whole process. What was that?
Depending on where you are and who you associate with and the relationships you hold, right? Like that's not a global phenomena. That's there's pockets of it all over the place, and in America there's more than a pocket of it.
Yeah,
right?
but it's the whole Instagram thing or the whole YouTube thing where you post a video and you get 1 million subscribers, and there's no real meaningful stuff happening there. And it's turning into a quest for likes or a quest for views, or and it's draining the meaning out of what we do, is his argument. A lot of these things that we've set up that a lot of people start to use inherently drain meaning away for the purpose of for good reasons, like optimizing our time or being more productive or saving money or doing something easier or delegating. And these mechanisms that we built, we've become very good at it. But the downside is they're replacing our meaningful interactions with these really fast automated transactions. And he has some really interesting suggestions towards the end of this video on what he calls space trains. It's just, yeah, it's just a really fascinating, I can't even describe the whole thing here and give it much justice, but it's made me rethink the way I want to build in the world. Is I don't want to create more funnels and tubes. I want to create spaces, which he calls those places where people can come together and find meaning. Like this is a space where people can come and interact and do stuff, but this isn't scalable to millions of people, right?
This is a space that has meaning, that's digitally enabled. And during COVID, we had, 2 years of doing this, and people found that the more transactional the Zoom call was, the less people enjoyed it and the less people would turn up. So they started to actually reinsert meaning into these meetings in order to, make sure people were engaged. So yeah, I think there's always, like, what are you looking for in the data? And
Yeah.
you'll find it.
And that's not to say that, yeah. Hi, Boaz. Thanks for coming. That this doesn't have meaning and these things don't exist. But how do you connect these to the other stuff? And he has some really interesting suggestions on how to completely redesign TikTok so that it's actually a space that creates meaning. And it's no longer this soul draining kind of one-to-many kind of thing. It's more of an interactive community building, meaning building kind of thing. And it doesn't take a whole lot to tweak things in that way, to recreate what we have like in this room and move it out into Catalyst's proposal system. And like some of that Catalyst stuff is pipes and funnels, and we don't build a lot of community around, like, do we know the proposers? Are we friends with them? Do we give them feedback in a way that's meaningful and have those kind of opportunities throughout the process? And
yeah,
not designed for it, right? At the moment,
right.
Not designed for it at all. Which begs the question of the CIP for me. I've been talking to our people here in New Zealand that we're working with, and like it's not entirely it's not entirely an American modeled system, but it's pretty goddamn close, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons that I got involved in Cardano and Project Catalyst, the work that I'm doing, is because the culture that I'm embedded in is polycentric. It's completely not what this CIP is proposing. And yeah, I wonder whether there's room for even that discussion. I know somebody put up a SIP, I can't remember what number it was, 1666 or something, which was a kind of like a federal system, like really built on the American model. But yeah, I just, from what I've seen, everybody that I've looked at, and you've looked at more, Nori, because you've put that newsletter together, they are pulling apart the actual CIP that's been proposed. There's no like alternative, like it's, do you know what I mean? Like it's, do we need to start again from the ground up and think about it in a different way? Which I heard on a Twitter space, Charles saying, well, if you want to put a SIP up, then put a SIP up. Yeah, great. And give me the same resources that you had to put the SIP together, and I'll put a SIP together.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. And
But one of the politicians saying to me, if you want cooperative housing in New Zealand, you write the Cooperative Housing Act. Oh, right, okay. Right, so I'll just do your job too, shall I?
yeah.
Right.
But even that is kind of back to funnels and tubes. It's like telling somebody to go write a KIP. It's like, where's the conversation? Where's the sense making, the gathering of the community to actually talk about these things before we write something down? And so we're missing whole swaths of the process. I think it doesn't start with the SIP. That should be like one of the end products of this whole process of community.
Yeah.
So here's an idea, and it's sort of like what I look for is the iterative nature of things. And but I know that the old, like, like the rail width, it goes back to like Roman roads. It's just like they chose as sort of a width, and then that propagated itself throughout the whole system for these thousands of years. And so that's why it's important where to start, or to build systems where kind of in the Ruskov, like, hey, we're starting from total scratch. The systems thinker, Ruskov, what's the guy's name? I need to know that guy's name. But there's a process where you're just like, the telephone system was destroyed last night and we have to rebuild it. All of our governance like destroyed itself. We don't have, delegates and this and that. We don't have that anymore. And it is a form of going into the future, because if you're insightful or fearful, then it already has destroyed itself. And that's the fear that I feel. Like it's already destroyed. And so I feel it, and I'm like, hey, we can't keep doing it the same way. But it would be fun to play a game where if you feel like it's going fine, but you destroy it in simulation and then you rebuild it. But all that is to say that it would be great to see if 1694 had the ability to jump track, like to go from a standard model, and then how far back can it jump back, kind of is diminutive or whatever, but can it jump to a different model? Like how well? And I do remember one of the very first things is like what constitutes when we scrap this. So the very first section or paragraph is like, how do we de-ratify this? Which I thought was interesting. So yeah, I don't mind starting something that's bad, but I want to be able to sense make and then change course, even a 180. It sort of goes to that little bit of wisdom. You can't steer a boat that's still, or you can't something. You have to be in motion.
You can't make a horse drink water.
Well, what if the horse is thirsty?
No, but you can't make it drink.
You can't make it.
Can't make it.
Lead them to the stream, though.
Yes. We can create a space where there is water and there are hungry, thirsty horses, and and if they retweet, if they like us, if they join our Discord and they retweet, then they can get some water to drink.
I want to know who the person was that you were talking about, Rush something, and I want to know what that analogy is, because I'm not living in Newman's brain.
It's true.
I dropped the link into the guy, I think. Russell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Russell. Yeah, Russell. Because there's another guy named Rushkoff. Russell.
Is it? Or is it Petko Ruskov?
No, not that guy.
Andrei Ruskov.
Oh, dude.
Martin Ruskov.
Russell L. Ackoff. Ackoff.
Oh, then I did get the right article. This is Russell Ackoff.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome. And then the boat that doesn't move, or is that like what?
Yeah. You can't steer. You can't. This is what I would ask ChatGPT, because this I love asking ChatGPT. You can't steer a boat. Can't steer a boat that's not moving.
Okay.
Something
You
like
can't steer a boat while it's on dry land.
that.
You can't,
You can't steer a boat if it has
still
no.
If it's on dry land. Yeah.
You can't steer a car that isn't moving. I think that's what it is.
Right.
You can't steer a boat while it's on dry land.
That's also true. That's also true. I mean, you can steer it, but it won't do anything.
Yeah.
Oh man.
There's probably
I'm
heaps
fully-
of us. Yeah.
I'm fully procrastinating not packing. You guys don't
Yeah.
understand the depravity that's going on here. I've got a lot of stuff to like, and then to clean, and then to say goodbye to everybody. Oh my God.
Yeah, this is probably a good place to end the YouTube recording. We're at an hour and a half. 90 minutes of fun.
Oh,
Thanks
boy.
everybody for your contributions.
Oh man.
Nice.
This has been the Pacific.
Good times.
Bye, YouTube.